of persons with disabilities. This topic will be presented in a two-part series. The first series today will be on the personal and social perceptions of disability and their effect on sexual development and sexual expression will be explored within the first part. The second part of the series will look at the actual physical aspects of sexual functioning. If this topic makes you uncomfortable or if your children are watching, please either change the channel or have your kids go into another room. Today's guest is Sonya Perduta. She is a registered nurse, has a master's in science, and is a certified rehabilitation registered nurse. Welcome to my show.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, it says here that you've been published and in the last couple of years. So why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Let's see. I'm a woman, of course. Let's see. I've been sitting in a wheelchair for approximately 25 years. I've been a registered nurse for about 26, 27 years, and I've been pretty much lecturing and educating people on all types of aspects on disability.
Okay. Well, let's begin with our first topic. I suppose a lot of people ask you whether or not persons with disabilities are sexual beings. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people are unsure whether or not people with disabilities can have sex, I guess. I mean, you might find someone in a wheelchair attractive, a man or a woman, and I find that a lot of people will shy away from making that first initial step at initiating conversation or something because they assume that people are not sexual. People who have disabilities are not sexual. But the fact is that people with disabilities are sexual, have sex, and actually enjoy it pretty much. So,
could you safely say that as let's take a child growing up in a home with a disability, okay? Either they're acquired or they were born with a disability. Is it any different in how the child, whether it's a boy or a girl, if they're taught sex by their parents or their peers? Is there any difference?
Well, between a boy with a disability and a young girl with a disability, I'm not sure. That would depend on the parents' influence and what their basic understanding and their values and beliefs are on sexuality. There are many different ways to look at that. I think that in general, children who are born with disabilities or develop disabilities at an early age, pre-adolescent, I think they have a hard time because they don't have any real role models to follow. You can't turn on a television show and see a teenager in a wheelchair going through the whole dating ritual or what it's like to be a teen in a wheelchair and be sexual and try to date. You just don't see that on TV. You don't really see that in books. You don't see that in magazines. It's only until recently that most major magazines will actually have someone in a wheelchair in an advertisement. But I think kids with disabilities lack the role models, and they just don't really know how to establish all of those dating and marriage type rituals that I'd say, like myself, I was injured at the age of 23, so I had already had dating experiences, I had already been sexual prior to my disability, so I already had preconceived notions of what dating was and what to expect from men. I'm heterosexual, so what to expect from men in that whole little dating game. But once you become disabled, all of that pretty much changes. I found that it changed a lot, and I find that a lot of people see that it changes. There's a hesitancy, I believe, in what we call the able-bodied, or basically the tabs, as we call you guys, the temporarily able-bodied. They kind of are a little frightened, I think, about people with disabilities and what they can or cannot do in the sexual realm, so to speak. I think a lot of times, too, I read an article once in this great book called Perspectives on Disability, and they talked about people, their reactions when they're attracted to someone who has a disability, that they begin to question themselves, why would I be attracted to someone who's disformed or disfigured, and does that make me strange to want to be involved with that person romantically? So I think people tend to go through a lot of different feelings, and I think a lot of times people have difficulty seeing beyond the disability, whether it be the use of a walker or a cane or a wheelchair. They just have difficulty seeing beyond that because they just don't have the experience with people with disabilities. They don't realize that we, per se, meaning the disability community, are people with feelings and emotions just like everybody else.
Yeah, you know, reflecting on that, you're right. When I was growing up and we took sex ed, we weren't even taught sexual education. But when we look through books, magazines, never ever in the 80s did we ever see anybody who was a disabled individual
Right.
in a picture.
Yeah.
And even on TV, I never really saw it. Though I do remember having a few people in movies who were in wheelchairs, like My Left Foot,
Oh, yeah.
and all that. And I wanted to ask you that. When they show people with disabilities, men and women, do they tend to show, oh, they favor the gender who's more sexual? Is it mostly the men they tend to show more sexual than women in the media?
In the media,
When they
with
show them
those
in
with
movies.
disabilities?
Yeah, in the
you mean?
movies. Is it, you know?
Gee, well, I think of it, yeah, probably yes. I think of My Left Foot. I think of The Coming Home, the John Voight, the old John Voight, Jane Fonda film. John Voight was the cute crip in the chair. Crip, of course, being a term that I can use, but you can't. So a man with a disability, he was pretty cute. The only female versions I've really seen are the other side of the mountain kind of stuff, and I don't really recall a lot of sexual scenes in that. And I haven't seen other movies that have women with disabilities as the main characters. No, it's a whole interesting concept of trying to be a sexual person and have a disability when the societal perceptions and viewpoints are that you're asexual and you don't have sex or don't want sex. And the reality is people want to have sex just like everybody else wants to have sex.